Thank you, Mistress Disa, and for giving me the opportunity to do this class. I had actually planned to do this class at both Embers and Lyceum, but as situation occurs, we didn't have either event. So Mistress Disa very kindly offered to allow me to have this class. So what this is an introduction to puppetry. We're going to go over a history of the types of puppets that are out there, as well as a little bit with the nomenclature and what is a puppet, what's not a puppet. I apologize for looking down a lot because I'm going to actually be referring to my my notes. So I apologize for the, hey, look at that, look at that. Oh, what's that? Oh, yeah, there. Okay, so let's get started. I see that we have 8 people. Wow. I'm I was speaking to Mistress Disa earlier, and she had I had told her that last year at Embers I had like 2 or 3 people in the class, so this is actually fantastic. I am a bit verklempt. Thank you. So this is Introduction to Puppetry. My name is His Lordship Volk the Grey. I've been a bard, storyteller for many years. Twice I've been champion of Glamir, and it's a lot of fun. And then I've owned puppets for much longer. And in fact, my first puppet is behind me on my wall. He's kind of a nondescript critter. You may have seen me carrying this guy around with me. And this is, as I am Volk the Grey, this is my friend Gray the Wolf. Now, I use puppets in my storytelling. I don't necessarily speak through the puppets, although sometimes the puppets speak. I'm not a ventriloquist. I don't throw my voice. So when the puppet speaks, my mouth moves. And that's just the way I work. There are a great many puppeteers, and I will give you, there's actually a fine lady who is in the SCA, who is actually living abroad, who gave me quite a bit of information about her life as a bard puppeteer in the SCA. So puppetry, what is it? Noun, a movable model of a person or animal that is used to entertainment and is typically moved either by strings controlling from above or by a hand from inside. I don't do strings. I'm not that well inclined. Encyclopedia Britannica says puppetry, the making and manipulation of puppets for use of some kind of theatrical show. A puppet is a figure, human, animal, or abstract form that is moved by human and not mechanical. Brief history. Puppetry has been around for a very long time. Before King Tut ruled in 1320 BCE, before the Common Era. After the fall of Rome, basically around the time of the beginning of our SCA known world, puppets helped teach religion within churches until the puppeteers' sense of humor became too much. Now, one of the things about puppetry that I'll get into a little bit later is the fact that it is well used as sarcasm, if you will, and showing that people's foibles, if you will. People will do things with puppetry that they would not necessarily act out in a human play. So actually, during Shakespeare's time, there was quite a bit of puppetry going on. Especially during the Reformation in 1507, considering puppetry made to appear as religious figures. And as you know from history, during the Protestant Reformation, all things iconic, meaning iconography, the appearance of something other than, or something like God, was not looked upon favorably. So a lot of puppeteers went underground. A lot of that. It was just standard operating procedure, but it still happened. So puppeteers, even though we were not looked upon as favorably, we were still there. We were considered a vile class of people. This was due to the fact that puppeteers often performed for anyone who was willing, and puppets were popular or unpopular depending upon social climate, politics, religion, and such. As many travel from place to place, may not have had a permanent address, as they were looked on with, as I said, suspicion, spies, rumors, spreaders, and at worst, educators. One of the things that I like to do as a bard is tell stories, and I've got a couple of stories that I've told that about Honey War and other events where I want people to know about the events that happened. Yeah, educators. Topics of many puppet shows were religious, political, court. That got a lot of puppeteers in trouble. News, entertainment, comedy, romance, drama, or slapstick. One of the most famous slapstick performers of puppetry were, and I'll get into this later, but moving on. Sorry about that. There were times a play written for human actors was adapted to taken from on the road with puppets. Imagine you're a puppeteer, and now many of them were, they made their own puppets, and so you had, and there was no concern about paying actors. So the money you got came to you, not to any of the actors, and so you could have an entire play, such as something like Romeo and Juliet, and you could act it out. Sometimes that was done with the creator's consent, and sometimes it wasn't. And you saw the play, you go, ooh, this is a good play. I'm going to take it over to the county over there, and maybe a couple of counties farther. And now one of the nice things about this for the writers of those plays was like, ooh, got people interested in seeing the play. So they got a cheap show, but it was able to be spread all over the place. Some countries, though, viewed puppeteers as a high class. High class acts they were. Some troupes had patrons, writers. One of the first operas to be written for marionettes ran for 12 years, beginning in Florence in 1670. A little bit late period, but still. Imagine the 12 years as a puppeteer in one place, or traveling around and playing this one show. I can't imagine this troupe was probably well appreciated. Okay, another popular puppetry venue was, and I'm going to really butcher this for poor Italian thing, Commedia del Art. Italian comedy of the profession, Italian theatrical form that flourished throughout Europe from the 16th to the 18th century. Outside Italy, the form had its greatest success in France, where it became the Commedia Italiana. In England, elements from it were nationalized in the harlequinade, in the pantomime, and in the Punch and Judy show. And again, talk about vaudeville. A puppet play involving the Comedy del Art characters Punch, the comical Hanswurst in German folklore was also a Commedia del Art character. Yeah, Punch and Judy. If you've ever seen Punch and Judy, the wonderful thing about it is it's slapstick, amazing slapstick. But back then, their comedy ran a little bit. You could do things with puppets that you couldn't do with humans. It would be poor form to throw a baby out of a window, whereas in Punch and Judy, one of the regular things was throwing the baby outside and beating, which, you know, not something that you want to consider as high comedy now, but back then anything went. What makes a puppet? What makes a puppet? Let's take the example of the difference between a doll and a puppet. A doll is not a puppet. But playing with a doll as if it were alive is not giving a puppet show. Add an audience, perform a show, now your doll has become a puppet. So you can actually use a doll as a puppet, but a doll is not necessarily a puppet. Why use puppets when you have live actors? Puppets don't need to be paid. Puppets don't need to be fed. And you can travel with a lot less space. So instead of wagons of actors, you have a cart with your puppets. So it was much easier to travel and to entertain from place to place. And as I said earlier, they didn't care necessarily who they performed for, they just wanted to perform. And one of the things that I said about news, so say I travel to Blatha Nor with the news from Glamir, and then I travel to Wywood, and then I travel to Madrona, and then I travel to Aquaterra. So I am basically adding to my repertoire as I travel with stories from those areas. And as a bard, I listen to other bards. And poetic license is one of those things that was taken quite frequently. And I could take a bard's another bard's shtick and use it, maybe not word for word, hopefully, but definitely have added to my bit, especially if I saw it was funny. Puppetry can be simple as a finger puppet. I made a bunch of finger puppets for my class, and this was one of them. Now, I don't know if you're able to recognize who this may be, but he is a caricature of His Excellency Yusuf. And so simple finger puppet. Another finger puppet I created, which I'm sure you'll recognize immediately, you know, ho, ho, ho. So you could actually have a little, puppet war. Or, hello, my friends, how are you doing? I am doing fine. How are you? You know, actually, Joseph would go, I'm fine. How are you? He's got a much more of those voice. And Santa. But anyway. So again, I don't do voice. I can do some voices, but I can't pantomime. Hand puppets and glove puppets. One of the only full puppet I have made, and pardon my back, is my puppet I've used on several occasions, and he's a simple glove puppet, Yorick, and I've used Yorick on several occasions in the Jabberwocky as the son who slays the Jabberwocky. Rod puppets and marionettes. I don't have any examples of rod puppets. Again, I don't necessarily use them. I don't use them. But what and I'll talk about other puppets real quick, but marionettes and string puppets and rod puppets. A rod puppet is you've got a stick, and have any of you seen Jeff Dunham? If you have, Jose Jalapeno on a stick is a rod puppet. He basically has a simple mechanism that he moves the mouth. It's a simple rod puppet. And marionettes, string puppets, Pinocchio being one of the famous, or infamous, however you wish to view him. My eye-hand coordination is not that good. I wish I could do marionettes. They are probably one of the most elegant puppetry out there. It's amazing what marionette puppeteers can do. I watch puppetry videos all the time, and watching marionette performers, I just boggles my mind the things that they're able to do. Flat figures or stick puppets. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen the Live and Glimmer videos that His Lordship Mishislav and I did with the help of his Lordship Wolfgar. And this I did a piece for Honey War, and I made some puppets with of their excellencies. I don't know if you probably won't recognize this, but you might. This is His Excellency Dunstan, and this is Her Excellency Alicia. So now I made these with the ability to change the facial features. So what I did was I cut out a bunch of black felt, and all this is black felt with a stick. So this is a flat puppet, and I'm able to change the eyes, although this one seems to be stuck, so I'll have to worry about that later. But anyway, so I was able to change the facial expressions. As I said, that's Her Excellency. And this is His Excellency Hengst. And unfortunately, this is Her Excellency Marika without eyes. So as I said, the eyes fell out. But yeah. So those are stick puppets. Very, very easy and very popular, very easy to make. Shadow puppets. Shadow puppets may be one of the oldest types of puppetry. Basically, you're looking at 18 people. Wow. Oh, thank you, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this so far. Don't forget that if you didn't get here at the beginning, we will be posting this video, so you'll be able to see the whole show. One of the things
Volk,
yeah.
Somebody asked, or somebody said, it's a lot like how churches used to use felt boards for their Bible stories, right?
Absolutely. That is when it comes to using felt board, oh my gosh. One of the things that is great storytelling tool. And I've thought about using that in Bardic as well as a storytelling mechanism. These are for a puppet show, so I can have them. I can actually disappear behind the screen, underneath the screen, and they will be talking. And hello, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. It's a nice day. It's a little bit chilly outside. Oh, yes it is. Well, what should we do? Well, I think we should stay at home and stay safe. Okay, that's a good idea. Anyway, so you get the simple puppet show there. But with a felt board, you're looking at a full storyboard and creating that board, and then changing throughout the piece. Now you can use a felt board and use something to this effect as a puppet, and actually, you're talking as the puppet is moving across the board. That would make this a form of a puppet. But as I was saying, shadow figures. Shadow figures, possibly one of the oldest. Basically, it's a shadow. You take a puppet, or you take a form, and this is a rabbit, and you shine light behind it, and what you see is a display. Now, I normally at this point I would ask, has anybody seen talk about one of the most famous puppet shows out there, Dark Crystal, in the Netflix production prequel to the movie. There are two puppets. There is a puppet who is portraying a puppet, and it's quite humorous. But they use a shadow puppetry in this one part, and it's amazing. Shadow puppetry is, like I said, potentially one of the oldest type of puppetry. So you're seeing, gee, I wonder if I can, well prepared. So here's the light. Oh, no, can't see it. Darn it. All right. Not gonna work. Darn. Okay. Body puppets. Oh my gosh, there is a troupe in Japan. The Benrucka puppets, named for a Japanese puppet master, Umura Benrucka of the 18th century. These figures, which are 1/2 to 2/3 life size, may be operated by as many as 3 manipulators. I would love, I don't know if I've actually seen, when I was in Japan, I was lucky enough to be able to see one of these shows, and it's amazing. most of the manipulators are wearing a black suit, full black. So the puppets are, as I said, half to 2/3 life size, and the manipulation is you look like you're watching. You forget that there's puppeteers back there. That's one of the goals of a puppeteer, is to have people forget that they're there, and so that people are the audience is focusing on the puppet rather than the performer. Well, the puppet is the performer rather than the manipulator. Making puppets, let me tell you, as I made my stick puppets, I made my felt puppets, I made Yorick here. First, I'll talk about clay or terracotta. Now, the thing about clay, and I made Yorick's head. Poor, ouch. Sorry, buddy. Out of clay. That's clay, because it was a medium that I use. I also work with home baked clay, Fimo and Sculpey, and yeah, that's a lot of clay. The downside of clay is it's very heavy, and so it's not. And the upside is you can make his face pretty much whatever you want, but it's not very mobile. Wood. Now, I imagine that there are a lot of carvers out there who would take a look at this and go, what were you doing? But this was my attempt. And do I plan on working on it more? Yeah. But I don't know if you can see very well. This is a face. And it's going to be someday a puppet head. So wood. Now, wood is very good for making marionettes. Most marionettes are made out of wood. Ivory. Ivory, carving ivory. I've never done it, but I understand it's a lot of work. Bone, again, use what you've got. Paper mache. And I'm going to name her right now. Yes, Her Ladyship Nadia Ridderali. She was Kingdom Volunteer Bardic Champion from 2012 to 2013. I first became aware of her the first time I competed for, no, not the first time, but one of the times that I competed for ANS champion, and I did little Yorick here as my ANS project, and I was told of Her Ladyship, and then at a Kingdom Arts and Sciences Duchess Miranda had brought a display of her work, and it bowled me over. I had never thought about using paper mache before, and then I'm looking at some of these things that Her Ladyship had created, and I was inspired. But as with most Scadians, I've got enough projects to work on, but it's something that I do want to do, is create puppets using the paper mache. It's very flexible medium, and if any of you have used paper mache, I use a form. I use quick plaster for masks, and I would probably do something very similar because it's able to dry, and it's able to be very, very durable. Paper mache, again, very, very durable and very light. And it's a wonderful thing about, as a puppeteer, you want something light on your hand. Wool and felt. Well, you've seen my felt. And so again, you're looking at a very simple, easy medium. Now, foam, rubber, or styrofoam. Most puppets today, most famous puppets, the Muppets, are foam. Another medium that I want to work on is foam rubber, but again, as with many Scadians, I have enough projects to work on. It's something that I do want to work on. The nice thing about foam rubber, again, light, and you can then put fur or something else over it. I hope nobody's afraid of spiders. If you are, I'm sorry. I should have warned you. But fur or whatever over it, and boom, you've got yourself a wonderful puppet. The 3 requirements of puppetry. A form to be animated. A person to do the animating. And a method of control that uses all or part of the puppeteer's body or an extension of it through rods, strings, wires, magnets, or a combination of those. The 3 requirements of puppetry. Very simple, very basic. You're the manipulator. Your puppet is the animated and the method. And I want to add a bit of a 4th story, something for the puppet to do. What is your purpose of using the puppet? What is your reason? What do you want to do with it? Again, do you want to tell a story? Do you want to talk about history? Do you want to spread news? What is the raison d'etre? What is its purpose? What is the purpose of the puppet? My dragon back there has had many uses, and probably one of the most often used reason for him is as the Jabberwock. There are, I bought my Raven, which I've brought out a couple of times, not necessarily in SCA, but in another venue that I tell stories at. I've used him quite often, and he's one of my newer purchases. But what are you using the puppet for? What tale, so story, what tale are you going to tell? Have that out there, practice it. If you want to be a puppeteer, if you want to be a bard, practice your stories. I have seen successful storytellers use their book. I have a bardic book. It has so many stories in it. It was actually given to me by my master, Griffin the Black. And it's my go-to. If there's a story that if someone asks for a story, I'll pull one out of there. But one of the important things about storytelling is trying to do it from memory. Looking at a book means you're focusing on the book. You're not necessarily focusing on the story. One of the reasons why I love doing the Jabberwock is that it is in my memory, and I can portray many different forms and really get into the meat of the story and into the storytelling. Appearance of the puppet. Again, something as small as a finger puppet or large as a Chinese dragon. What do you want your puppet to look like? What do you want it to portray? How big do you need it to be? Action. Action needed to tell the story. Okay. If you have a story where your puppet needs to climb, you're going to need hands on the puppet. If the puppet's going to swim, if the puppet's going to basically float, what does the puppet need to do? What is the action of the puppet? Sounds. What sounds is the puppet going to be making? What sounds do you want the audience to hear? One of the things about sounds, when it comes to stories, you can have a wonderful background, and bards work together very well at times. And I've actually been part of a performance with His Lordship Gareth, and it was amazing. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to use any puppets, but it was a Shakespeare performance, and being part of a troupe. Well, one of the things about sounds is if you have music in the background, something to set up the mood. I don't know if any of you have seen the musical Peer Gynt. Very music. You can actually listen to the music in the background, and it will tell the story. The musicians will tell the story so well that you don't necessarily need a narrative. That helps move the story along and can actually build up a crescendo, so that as the Jabberwock and the Beamish Boy are fighting, the music builds and builds and builds, and then finally, 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the Vorpal went snicker snack, and boom, and then there's the crescendo, and then off with his head, and that type of thing. Music can play a very important part in that. Sound effects. Somebody in the background doing some screams or some laughter can help as well. Construction. All right, I'm going to speak a little bit about Her Ladyship again, and again, Her Ladyship Nita Ritterell. Anyway, I have been told, and by herself as well, that she actually had a traveling stage that she would be able to as part of her garb, she would be able to set this up and disappear behind and have her puppets. That type of performance is amazing. That type of dedication is phenomenal. And a stage, what are you looking at? As asked earlier about the felt board. The felt storyboard, is that something that you want to have, if you want to use? A puppetry stage, do you want to use something like that? Do you, what do you want? How do you want everything to move? So these are things to think about. Visual. Okay. Oh, time. Sorry. Time. How much or how little time do you have to tell the story? I'm a big fan of quick stories. I do love a good Skald, a Viking story, but so many of them are pages long. I like to keep my audience, I like to hit and finish as fairly quickly as possible. I know that I'm not one who likes to sit for long periods of time, so give me a quick story anytime. But that's me. This is where knowing your audience in the next iteration. So next step, know your audience. What are you looking at? Who are you looking at? Are you entertaining children? Are you entertaining adults? Are you entertaining a mix? Are you entertaining a bunch of fighters? So you're looking at knowing your audience, and if you don't know your audience, you need to be prepared for several stories, so that when your audience does appear, you're not going to be just telling, you're not going to go tell a Body Bardic story at a kids show. No, not going to happen. At least I hope you don't. Now you may tell a kid's story at a Body Bardic, because you never know how inebriated people are at those things. Anyway, know your audience. Know your audience. You want to entertain them. You don't want to lose them. Visual, what to wear, what puppets wear, stage scene. Imagine you're doing Romeo and Juliet. Do you want to dress in 16th century, or sorry, 17th century, 1600s England? Do you want to dress as they would? Maybe, because you want to be if you want to be as authentic as possible. Do you want to tell a good Viking story? All right. I'm not necessarily going to tell Beowulf and my puppets look like something out of 1500s France. No, not gonna really work well there. So yeah, the story's not going to tell. So what are your puppets wearing? By the way, with Wolf, with Gray here, I did make his tunic, and he is adorned with sight tokens. So he always, when he shakes. So I did make this because I got tired of his sight tokens. I had the sight tokens around his neck, and I wasn't able to get my hand into him, and so he now wears all my sight tokens. But how do you want your puppets to appear? Philosophy of puppetry. Every puppeteer's philosophy of puppetry is different, and that is it should be. For puppetry as heart is a way to express the self. So puppetry at heart is a way to express the self. What do you want your philosophy to be? What do you, again, the statement is, what do you want to do? What do you want to convey? What story do you want to tell? Oh, advice from Volk. Practice, practice, practice. You want to be a storyteller? You want to be a puppeteer? Practice, practice, practice. If someone says, Hey, Bard, tell us a story. Okay. I'm going to tell a story. I tell stories from all over. I'm a traveler. I'm a traveling man. My persona is 1300s Novgorod and the Rus, and I was an archer, as my father was. And then I was injured and started telling stories around the fire. My patron, who was on the retinue of the prince, and the prince decided, hey, this guy's dream is to go storytelling. So that's what I did. I went traveling. So I tell stories from all over. I have some of my favorite stories actually are from the Pacific Northwest. And I don't know, they're not period necessarily. They may be period for here, but they're not necessarily period for where we are at the time in our known world. But I don't doubt that they are stories that would be told around. And if I'm just going to tell a story and not necessarily do a bardic competition where I need to provide every little detail, then I'm going to tell how the raven gave the sun to the humans, and that's one of my favorite stories. Or the wolf and the rabbit. Again, it's a Northwest tale. So, yeah. I did tell the wolf and the rabbit at BAO's Candlemas, and seemed to be a hit. Practice. And practice with people you trust and have confidence. Record yourself. I've noticed, and recording yourself is actually now very much easier than it used to be, and it's a great way to critique yourself. Watch out for the ums and the uhs. I know that I've used a couple of those, probably more than a couple of those than I like in this production, but it happens. Keep those to a minimum. I remember when I was doing public speaking, and one of the things that I was told, I had somebody actually count my ums and uhs. They came up to me and said, you did 15 ums and 32 uhs or something to that effect. And I was like, no. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, okay, bad. Don't feel bad for pausing. Now, I don't mean that you should speak like Shatner, but pausing is not bad. It's not. Better to pause than go, You're going to lose your audience. At least when you're pausing, you're potentially building some action rather than there was this and the so that's a great way to practice is videoing yourself. Now, wear non-restrictive clothing, especially around your hands. I made the mistake once of prepping for a performance, and I was wearing my gauntlets, and I tried to put my puppet on. I'm like, oh crap, it won't go on. And so I'm like, gauntlets off. don't wear restrictive clothing if you're going to be using puppetry, at least hand puppets. It's one thing if you're going to use stick puppets or finger puppets, it's not that big of a deal. But with anything else, less restrictive clothing. Puppetry ideas. Now, these are my ideas. One of my favorite Shakespeare pieces is the graveyard scene from Hamlet. Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him, Horatio, man of infinite jest, most excellent fancy. He hath carried me upon his back, I know not how oft. One of the things that I want to make is a foam skull so that I can actually, perform with it. This came to me. This came to me one day when I was actually cleaning this room. This is actually my bedroom, and I was cleaning it, and some of the dust bunnies were almost sentient. And so I was thinking, wow, I need to make a dust bunny costume for my bunny puppet. Yeah, because dust bunnies, every once in a while I'll be vacuuming something, and then I'll hear this, and I'm like, oh, that was a big one, and just think, dust bunny speaking, just kind of cute, household cuteness. Oh, I have a lion now. Some of my puppets I have purchased. Some of my puppets I have made. 2 puppets were actually gifted to me. One of them is my bunny puppet, and he is adorable. But I have a lion puppet, and he is right. Oh, here's my bunny puppet. Yeah, isn't he cute? You can't really see him because he's dark. He was gifted to me. And this is my lion puppet. Now, wouldn't it be cool if he had black armor? The on-tier lion, yes. So that's one of my wishes, is to make black armor for my my lion puppet. So things that are in my wheelhouse. Also, again with the paper mache. Well, our time is almost over. Let me give you some of my bibliography. Oh, real quick. If you want, I don't know how we're gonna do this, but I'll give you my, or maybe Mr. Stisa can help me out with this. I would like to send you my notes, my pages.
Volk, I can provide a link to that on my on the Facebook event page, and I'll link it to my blog page so that I can actually have that as an attachment on the video.
Awesome. So that's fantastic, because that's what I want. I want everybody to have a copy of this. I was going to ask you about that earlier. But I want to give for my bibliography, again, Her Ladyship Nita Ridderali, dictionary.com, the Encyclopedia Britannica, The Complete Book of Puppetry by George Litshaw, Puppetry, A World History by Eileen Blumenthal, and Practical Puppetry by Carol Rexnar. Now, granted, I hope you noticed that at no time did I reference Wikipedia. Really, Now, I have to say that when I first started looking into things, I did look at, of course, Wikipedia because it's there. But then I looked at some of the resources that Wikipedia had and went into more depth with that. That's pretty much it. Are there any questions from anybody from the audience? All 22 of you, thank you, goodness. Wow, 22 people. That makes me so happy. Any questions? Anybody?
I asked a couple minutes ago. I don't see any. Anya says she's inspired. Audrey says she'd love the notes, so the blog page would be great. We'll just wait just a minute and see if anybody has any questions. If you have any questions, please go ahead and type that. Oh, okay. Audrey, what question do you have? Audrey says she has a question. Elizabeth says, thank you for the class.
You're welcome.
We'll wait just a second here for Audrey to type her question.
Well, so to finish the video out, I'm just going to say thank you, everybody. And I will take your questions, but I want to finish the video and say thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for participating in this, and very much appreciate all of you watching this.
Audrey actually asks, will you be doing any more classes on more advanced puppetry?
I would love to. I'm not exactly sure what. I could probably go into a little bit more detail as to the type of puppetry and performances. I'd have to come up with that class, but I would love to do a larger scale, maybe, like I said, more specific to certain things. I could absolutely do that, yeah.
Well, we'd love to have you teach it, Volk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Ristisa. And so if that's all the questions, we've been at this for an hour, and I very much appreciate you and thank you. And please, puppetry is amazing. And of course, storytelling is amazing. Bardic is amazing. So please, if it's something that you're interested in, contact your local bard. Contact me. I will help you in any way, shape, manner, and or form. So thank you.